The scent of roses filled the air as I stood at the altar, nerves tingling with anticipation. Every nerve in my body was alight with excitement, waiting for the moment when Kelly, the love of my life, would walk down the aisle towards me. Friends and family filled the pews, their eyes gleaming with joy and anticipation. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But as the music swelled and the door at the back of the church swung open, it wasn't Kelly who emerged. Instead, it was Stephen, my best friend since childhood, wearing a smug grin on his face. Confusion gripped me as I watched him stride down the aisle, his eyes locked with mine. "Where's Kelly?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. Stephen's grin widened as he reached the altar, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his suit. "Oh, you didn't hear? She's not coming." My heart plummeted into my stomach as his words sank in. Panic surged through me and I turned to face him, desperation evident in my eyes. "What are you talking about? Where is she?" But Stephen's only response was a cruel laugh, echoing off the church walls. "Guess you'll have to ask her yourself, Mike." And with that, he turned on his heel and sauntered out of the church, leaving me alone at the altar, the weight of his words crushing me to the ground. Tears stung my eyes as I struggled to make sense of what had just happened. How could Kelly do this to me? And why had Stephen been a part of it? The questions swirled in my mind, but there were no answers, only a gaping void where my happiness had once been. As the reality of their betrayal washed over me, I sank to my knees, the pain too much to bear. And in that moment, surrounded by the shattered remnants of my dreams, I knew that my life would never be the same again. In the days that followed the disastrous wedding, I found myself in a fog of disbelief and heartache. I couldn't bring myself to leave the confines of my apartment, the pain of Kelly and Stephen's betrayal weighing heavily on my shoulders. Every corner of the small space echoed with memories of what was supposed to be, taunting me with what I had lost. It was amidst this suffocating grief that the postcard arrived, a cruel reminder of the life I had once known. I stared at the simple piece of paper in my trembling hands, the words scrawled across it mocking me with their finality. Why would they do this? I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the deafening silence of the empty room. The postcard offered no answers, only vague explanations and empty apologies. But even as I read and reread the words, hoping to find some shred of understanding, the truth remained elusive. How could they have left me like this, without so much as a word of explanation? Did they ever truly care about me at all? My fingers tightened around the edges of the postcard, the paper crumpling beneath the force of my frustration. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, threatening to spill over as the reality of their betrayal sunk in. I felt like a fool, played for a fool by the two people I trusted most in the world. "Damn them," I muttered, the words bitter on my tongue. But as the anger simmered beneath the surface, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered a different truth. Despite the pain and the betrayal, I couldn't bring myself to hate them entirely. Somewhere deep down, buried beneath the hurt and the anger, a part of me still longed for the love and the friendship we once shared. And so, with a heavy heart and a tear-stained face, I tucked the postcard away, a painful reminder of a life that was no more. For better or for worse, Kelly and Stephen had made their choice, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart alone. 10 years had passed since Kelly and Stephen's betrayal, and in that time, I had done my best to move on with my life. But no matter how far I ran or how hard I tried to bury the pain, their betrayal remained a constant presence, lurking just beneath the surface. It was on an ordinary afternoon that fate intervened, leading me to a chance encounter that would change everything. I had stopped by a hotel lounge to grab a cup of coffee, seeking solace in the familiar warmth of the bustling room. As I settled into a comfortable armchair, I never could have anticipated who would walk through the door. "Michael?" The voice cut through the noise of the room like a knife, and I turned to see a familiar face standing at the entrance. It was Stephen, though the passage of time had etched lines of weariness into his once boyish features. He looked older, more weathered, and there was a sadness in his eyes that mirrored my own. "Stephen," I replied, my voice betraying none of the turmoil raging inside me. "I didn't expect to see you here." He approached cautiously, as if unsure of how I would react to this presence. Yeah, well, life has a funny way of bringing people together, he said, a hint of bitterness tinging his words. I studied him for a moment, searching for any sign of the carefree friend I had once known. But all I saw was a shell of the person he used to be, weighed down by the consequences of his actions. What happened to you, Stephen? I asked, unable to mask the concern in my voice. He shrugged, a hollow gesture that spoke volumes. Life, I guess. It hasn't been easy. I nodded, understanding all too well the toll that life's hardships could take. But even as empathy swelled in my chest, I couldn't shake the bitterness that lingered beneath the surface. Well, I hope things start looking up for you, I said, the words feeling hollow on my tongue. Stephen offered me a weak smile, a shadow of the confident grin I remembered from our youth. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. And with that, he turned and made his way out of the lounge, leaving me alone once again with my thoughts. As I watched him go, a whirlwind of emotions swirled inside me. But amidst the chaos, one thing became clear. The wounds of the past had yet to heal, and the scars they left behind ran deeper than I ever could have imagined. The encounter with Stephen at the hotel had left me reeling, my emotions swirling in a tumultuous whirlwind. As I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment, I couldn't shake the sense of unease that lingered in the pit of my stomach. Stephen's presence had dredged up memories long buried, reopening wounds that had never fully healed. But amidst the chaos of my thoughts, one thing remained clear. I couldn't let Stephen's betrayal go unaddressed. And so, with a sense of determination burning in my chest, I made a decision. I would confront him, once and for all, and demand the answers I so desperately craved. It was a few days later when I finally crossed paths with Stephen again, this time in a less crowded setting. He was sitting alone at a nearby cafe, nursing a cup of coffee as he stared off into the distance. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest as I prepared to confront the man who had once been my closest friend. Stephen, I said, my voice cutting through the silence of the cafe. He looked up, surprise flickering across his features before being replaced by a guarded expression. Michael, he replied, his tone wary. I took a seat opposite him, steeling myself for the conversation that was about to unfold. We need to talk, I said, my words firm and unwavering. Stephen shifted uncomfortably in his seat, a nervous energy radiating from him. About what? He asked, though the tension in his voice betrayed his apprehension. I didn't mince words. About what happened 10 years ago, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. About you and Kelly. For a moment, Stephen said nothing, his gaze fixed on the table in front of him. But then slowly he looked up, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of guilt and remorse. I'm sorry, Michael, he said, his voice barely audible over the din of the cafe. I know I can never make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I regret it every single day. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, the pain of his betrayal resurfacing with a vengeance. But even as anger bubbled beneath the surface, I couldn't ignore the sincerity in his voice. Why did you do it, Stephen? I asked, my voice raw with emotion. Why did you betray me like that? Stephen's gaze faltered, his hands fidgeting nervously in his lap. I wish I had an answer for you, Michael, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But the truth is, I was selfish. I let my own desires cloud my judgment, and I ended up hurting the people I cared about most. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air between us, the silence stretching on as we both grappled with the enormity of what had been said. And though the wounds of the past would never fully heal, in that moment, there was a glimmer of understanding, a small step towards forgiveness amidst the pain and the betrayal. After the intense confrontation with Stephen, I retreated into the solitude of my thoughts, seeking solace in the quiet of my apartment. The echoes of our conversation lingered in my mind, each word a painful reminder of the betrayal that had torn my life apart. But amidst the turmoil, there was a newfound clarity, a sense of understanding that had eluded me for so long. As I sat alone in the dim light of the evening, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this point. 10 years had passed since Kelly and Stephen's betrayal, and in that time, I had weathered countless storms, each one shaping me into the person I had become. But even as I grappled with the pain of the past, there was a glimmer of hope flickering in the darkness. Despite the heartache and the betrayal, I had found love again, a love that was built on a foundation of trust and respect, rather than lies and deception. And as I thought about the family I had created, I realized that their presence in my life was a testament to my resilience, a testament to the fact that even in the face of unimaginable pain, I had found the strength to move forward. But amidst the reflection, there was also a sense of sadness, a sadness for the friendship that had been lost and the bond that had been irreparably broken. Stephen had been my closest friend, my confidant, my brother in all but blood. And yet, his actions had shattered the trust that had once bound us together, leaving nothing but a void in its wake. As the weight of these realizations settled over me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the lessons I had learned along the way. The pain of Kelly and Stephen's betrayal had been a crucible, forging me into a stronger, more resilient version of myself. And though the scars of the past would always remain, they served as a reminder of the person I had once been and the person I had become. And so, as I looked towards the future, I did so with a sense of optimism, a belief that even in the face of adversity, there was always hope. For though the road ahead may be uncertain, I knew that as long as I had love in my heart and strength in my soul, I would always find a way to persevere. In the wake of Stephen's revelation and the subsequent reflection on my past, I found myself embracing the opportunity to build a new life for myself. With the wounds of betrayal still tender, I focused my energy on creating a future filled with love, joy, and fulfillment. One of the most significant aspects of this new chapter was my relationship with Sarah, the woman who had entered my life and brought light into the darkness of my past. Our love was a beacon of hope, guiding me towards a future filled with promise. Together, we embarked on a journey of healing and growth, supporting each other through the highs and lows of life. Michael, Sarah said one evening as we sat together on the balcony, the city lights twinkling in the distance, "I'm so grateful to have you in my life." Her words washed over me like a warm embrace, filling me with a sense of gratitude for the love that we shared. "I feel the same way, Sarah," I replied, reaching for her hand and intertwining our fingers together. "You've brought so much happiness into my life." As we gazed out at the world spread out before us, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace settle over me. Despite the trials and tribulations of the past, I knew that as long as we had each other, we could weather any storm that came our way. But building a new life wasn't just about finding love. It was also about finding purpose and fulfillment in my work and my passions. I threw myself into my career with renewed vigor, channeling my energy into projects that challenged and inspired me. And in doing so, I found a sense of fulfillment that I had never experienced before. Michael, my colleague, said one day as we wrapped up a successful presentation, a smile spreading across her face, "You really knocked it out of the park today. I'm so proud to have you on our team." Her words filled me with a sense of pride and accomplishment, reaffirming my belief in the value of hard work and dedication. "Thank you," I replied, returning her smile with a sense of gratitude. "I'm just glad that I could contribute to our success." As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, I found myself settling into this new chapter of my life with a sense of ease and contentment. And though the scars of the past would always remain, they served as a reminder of the strength and resilience that lay within me. With Sarah by my side and a renewed sense of purpose driving me forward, I knew that the future held endless possibilities. And as I looked towards the horizon, I did so with a sense of optimism, for the best was yet to come. As time passed and I settled into my new life, I realized that harboring resentment towards Kelly and Stephen would only hold me back from fully embracing the happiness that surrounded me. And so, with a sense of determination, I made the conscious decision to seek forgiveness, not for their sake, but for my own. It was a warm summer evening when I found myself standing outside Stephen's apartment building, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that lay ahead, and rang the doorbell. To my surprise, Stephen answered the door, his expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. "Michael," he said, his voice cautious, "what are you doing here?" I met his gaze head-on, determination burning in my eyes. "I've come to make peace, Stephen," I replied, my voice steady despite the nervous fluttering in my chest. "I can't change what happened in the past, but I refused to let it define our future. Stephen's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment he seemed at a loss for words. But then slowly, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "I've been hoping for this moment, Michael," he said, his voice tinged with emotion. "I carried the weight of my actions for far too long, and I'm ready to make amends." As we sat together in Stephen's living room, the weight of the past slowly lifting from our shoulders, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to truly forgive, not just Stephen, but also Kelly for the pain they had caused. "I forgive you, Stephen," I said, the words coming easier than I had expected. "I can't change what happened, but I believe that we can move forward from this." Tears welled in Stephen's eyes as he reached out to grasp my hand, a silent acknowledgement of the forgiveness that had passed between us. "Thank you, Michael," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless." And as we sat together in the quiet of Stephen's apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of our past, I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the pain. It was about finding peace within ourselves. And though the scars of the past would always remain, they served as a reminder of the strength and resilience that lay within us both. As I left Stephen's apartment that evening, a weight lifted from my shoulders, leaving behind a sense of freedom and liberation that I hadn't felt in years. And as I looked towards the future, I did so with a renewed sense of hope. For though the road ahead may be uncertain, I knew that as long as I had forgiveness in my heart, I could face whatever challenges came my way.